In this video, we'll go over how to customize a web form. Before you start, you should have already templatized your documents. If you haven't had a chance to do so yet, check out our tutorial on how to set up a PDF template. To create a workflow, navigate to your Workflows dashboard, then click Create Workflow. From here, you can add in your template. By default, use Anvil Document AI is enabled, and we encourage you to leave this setting selected, as it can help you save time as you're building your workflow. Next, click Start with Documents. As you can see, a base web form was automatically created for me, and Anvil Document AI was able to find and tag 32 document fields. Depending on whether or not you leverage Document AI when you created your workflow, your web form questions may have already been categorized into different pages for you with page descriptions. Building a workflow is an iterative process, and there's no one way to go about it. The steps I take might differ from the steps that you prefer to take. However, I personally like to start with my web form, as this is what my end users spend most of their time interfacing with. I typically like to go through my entire web form first to see if things make sense before I start making changes. For example, do I like the field labels? Are they clear, or do my users need more instructions in order to understand what I'm asking of them? Do I like the way the questions were grouped? Do I need to format anything? Does anything need logic? After I've given everything a cursory look over, I like to go through and change the easy things first. For example, I know I don't need this comma field. This is something that's a literal value in my document itself. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this, and then navigate back to my web form, and then I can delete this question. I also don't think it's necessary to specify that I need the applicant's name and the applicant's address, so I'm going to simplify these. Between a home and cell phone number, I might not need both, so I'm going to make these fields both optional so that the end user can decide which one they want to provide. Another thing to consider is whether or not the fields are the correct type. For preferred communication method, users will be expected to click on this field and select options from a drop-down menu. However, looking at my options themselves, there's only 3 and they're very short words, so I might want to change this to a radio button instead to make it easier for the users to select an option without an extra click. You can also choose to customize the look and feel of your buttons by making them compact or full width. I'm going to make similar changes on this page. Since I chose to leverage Document AI to create my workflow, page descriptions and page titles were already created for me. They might not be what I want, so I'm going to go ahead and update those. Now, taking a look at this page, it's not entirely clear what behavioral concerns is asking about. If I scroll down on the field options panel on the left, I can click on the connected fields to see the exact question I'm looking for in the PDF. As you can see, the question itself is actually much longer. It's asking about whether or not there's any behavioral concerns or contagious or chronic illnesses for your existing pets. Going back to my web form, I'm going to update this field label so that it's more clear. I can also add a description or help tip to add more clarity. Now that I'm looking at the first 3 questions in more detail, they'd be better suited for the previous page about current pets. The last 2 questions would be better suited for the next page on experience and availability. First, select the question, then scroll down in the field editor panel on the left, click on Move, select the page you want to move the question to, and then confirm. Repeat this process as necessary. Now that I've moved all the questions out of this page, I can actually remove the page itself. To do that, click on your page header, then select Remove Page. When you move fields across pages, they'll automatically be placed at the bottom of the new page. Since it would make more sense for these last 2 questions to appear at the top of the page, I can move them by clicking on this move icon, and then dragging to the correct position before letting go. Now that I'm happy with the overall flow of my web form, I can further streamline it by showing and hiding questions with logic. In this question, I ask users to specify their other living accommodation. This question is only relevant if they selected other in the question before. I'm going to add logic by clicking on the field, then selecting the field logic tab in the field editor panel. Then add a condition. I can choose my relevant field that I'm basing my logic off of. Then I can select my relevant condition. If you want to preview the logic, you can click on the play button. As you can see, that question is now hidden. If I select other, that question will appear. If I select a different option, that question will disappear. To go back to building, I'm going to click on the wrench button. You can also add page logic to hide or show an entire page. This page about current pets is only relevant if I have a current pet. Rather than adding logic to each of these fields one by one, what would be easier is to move this question to the page before. You can add page logic by clicking on the page header, then selecting page logic. Add your condition. Just like before, I can test this logic out. Scrolling down to the bottom of my household details page, I can see my question about current pets. Because nothing has been selected here, you can see the next page I'd navigate to would be experiences and availability. If I select yes, you can see that that changes and the next page that the user is navigated to is current pets. You can also add logic to the document or PDF fields. For this particular question, it's actually 2 questions. Do you have any experience as an animal caregiver? And what questions do you have about fostering? Originally, this was set up as a singular long text field. However, it would be better suited for several short text fields. It's important to note that once your PDF and Webform fields are connected, any changes you make in one field will also affect the other. In order to avoid any issues, I'm going to first disconnect this field. Now I can freely make changes to my PDF field without affecting my Webform field. First, I'm going to change this to a short text field. Then I'll reduce the size of this field and then duplicate. And now update my field name so each field only corresponds with one question. I can then make similar changes to my Webform field. Then I can connect the fields again. The first half of the question is better suited to a yes or no response. On my Webform, I'm going to add a new field by clicking on this plus sign. Then I'll select Add Input Field. I'll first update this label, then I can change the field type to a radio button. Yes and no options have already been added for me, so I'll just update my field to match the rest of my Webform. Looping back to my PDF field, I want to fill this with a literal value. To do that, navigate to the section that says how would you like to fill this PDF field, and then change it to with a literal value. You can then enter your literal value here. Now this answer should only show when a user answers yes, they have experience. To add logic to my PDF field, click on the field, then select the Field Logic tab. Add condition, then locate the field. Next, add your condition. So far, I've only set up my field to account for when a user has experience as an animal foster caregiver. I also want to add another field to account for when the user does not have experience. To do this, I would first select this field, and then I can use keyboard shortcuts to duplicate this field. On a Windows computer, the keyboard shortcuts would be Control-D. On a Mac computer, the keyboard shortcuts would be Command-D. After I've duplicated this field, I want to update the value. I also want to edit the logic. Next, I'll stack these 2 fields so that the information is placed in the correct position in the output document. Some documents include tables and arrays. We have a specific Webform field that'll help you fill these out more easily. To set this up, I'd first disconnect my fields. I can set each column to be its own array. To do that, click on the first field in the column, then click on the Advanced tab. Select Create an Array. You can then add your other items. Be sure to add these fields in the order in which you want the list populated. Repeat this step with the next few columns, making sure each column is its own array. After you've configured all of your PDF arrays, it's time to add a list field to your Webform. A list field is a collection of fields that are all grouped together. Users are able to add more items to your list, which is perfect for tables such as these. I'm going to add the question to the actual list itself. Instead of having each of these fields as a separate field outside of the list field, I'm going to add them inside. I'll test this field out to show you what it's like to fill in a list type field as a user. The user is able to enter a collection of information about one pet. After they finish adding the details of a single pet, they can save the item and then proceed to add another. Each list item is a single row in my table. Each of these categories will be filled in across the columns for each of my arrays. Since I've incorporated all these fields inside my list, I can go ahead and delete all my previous fields. Navigating back to my PDF, I can now connect these array fields to the corresponding list subfield. To do this, click on your array, then select your main list field from this drop-down menu. You'll be prompted to add a corresponding subfield. Since I took the time to set this up as an array, all my list items will automatically populate in order. Repeat this step with the remainder of your arrays. My workflow now has a well-configured web form that'll help guide the user through the form filling experience. In the next video, I'll show you how you can configure signers within a workflow.